There was a gentleman that was the chief marketing officer, Jason White, who was talking to me about working with them on a social equity initiative. And we were developing the Be Noble brand. And I sent him what we had put together image wise and the concept of what we're doing. And I just to get a look at. And he came back and said, man, I showed this to our CEO and he said, let's make a deal. So I was really blown away. And we right away started figuring out how we can work together, which came together. The first products hit the shelves in 2021 in July, and we've been off to the races ever since. So they've been fully committed to what we're doing, to the brand. Where we are independently owned, like we own the brand, but we work with Curaleaf in all the different states that we're in. I think it's a total of 9 or 10 states now since Florida just came on board, and we're just excited.
Heck yeah. The hip hop market, not to speak about the hip hop market, but hip hop and cannabis have kind of gone hand in hand
Yeah,
from the time both have come along, almost to the point of stereotype, but
true.
the as the country has gone more in the direction of freedom when it comes to cannabis, how has that had an impact on the industry itself? People from those communities, are we getting, because here in Florida, there's still a challenge to get more equity for minority shareholders, minority people working in dispensaries and things like that. Up north, is it in New York and such, have they got a little more equity and diversity going on up there?
Well, New York, that's a good question. So in New York, well, first of all, I should say I learned a lot of this stuff while making the film I made called Grass is Greener, which you can see on Netflix. And the idea was to show the connection between cannabis and America's music, and also to look at the criminal justice disparities, if you will. And so that's how I met Bernard Noble, decided I wanted to do something, named the brand after him, partnered with him, learned about the whole history way more than I ever knew. And I got really motivated and inspired to really jump in this business, to really help make a difference, really. And so at the time when the film came out, New York was still, not where we are now. We're in the early phases of adult use rolling out after having a medical market here. And so New York, turns out that the legislation that we recently have passed is the most progressive in the country. Anywhere one can smoke a cigarette in New York City, one can use cannabis. And so now the Office of Cannabis Management and the people that are in charge of it are working to put the kind of diversity in effect. In fact, the first people getting licenses are those that were impacted by had been arrested or convicted for possession, nonviolent cannabis usage. Those are the first people, as well as nonprofit organizations, are getting the first licenses. So this is a pretty interesting situation to kind of right the wrongs that we've been living under for like 80 something years, since 1937, when cannabis was criminalized. So
Right.
it's just amazing to see, from the time the film came out to now, we now have a legal cannabis is legal in New York. Adult um, dispensaries are starting to open up, and a lot of people are basically going to get educated, and New York could eventually become the biggest market. But what was exciting also in that same kind of idea in seeing Florida was when I visited the dispensaries, the people running it and working there, it was the most diverse group that I'd seen. It was really impressive to see, people of color in charge, explaining the various processes undergoing in this massive growth. Definitely the biggest growth I've ever seen. So that was really cool. Um, the Lady Madonna strain that they waited to get really at optimum conditions before the Be Noble can roll out, along with a peanut butter souffle strain, are just super sublime. I mean, I was like really really impressed. Some of the best that I've experienced of all the other states carrying B Noble in Curaleaf stores. So it was pretty amazing. And just Florida was great. People were really nice, really receptive. The teams at all the dispensaries were all wearing their B Noble gear. It was really exciting.
Absolutely. It there's so many celebrities, artists, musicians, and stuff working in the cannabis industry these days.
Yeah.
Like how important is it to really find a product that stands out? You know, I think of it almost like craft beer or craft distilleries. You know, the amount of thought and attention to detail that goes into making the different strains, and everything's a little bit different. And you know, what are some of the properties that you tend to prefer?
Well, you know, a certain level of THC is good, but the terpene profiles, which have been developing from the geneticists and the cultivators that are like perfecting these new variations of cannabis, the flavors that are involved, these terpene flavors, the taste, the smells, it's on a level of fine wine now where high quality cannabis is at in terms of the guys that are like, I'm gonna, you know, cultivating to get a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and it makes you feel like this, and all these things are really being perfected now, which is quite astonishing. You know, as a kid, as a young teen, a young cannabis user decades ago, where we had to clean the seeds out, and the cannabis was all dry and all funky looking, and you know, and we smoked it all back then, not knowing that it's just the flower that makes the magic happen. And so it's incredible. Like even while I was making the film Grass is Greener, and I'm visiting and interviewing people in California and up in the Portland, up in that area, interviewing people and then coming back to New York, and we didn't have any dispensaries, and you just had to wait for your connection to hopefully has something decent. When in California, you can walk into a dispensary and get a dozen different flavors of different levels. Like, I want something that's like a glass of wine, or, oh no, I want something that's like 2 shots of tequila. You can get that specific strain at a dispensary where you have a bud tender that knows what's behind the counter. In New York, I felt so upset that we were still in the dark. And once again, in a short time after, Grass is Greener dropped in 2019, and I think it was 2020 or 2021, they signed it into you know, they made it legal in New York and stopped arresting people. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe this. This really happened.
Yeah. And you know, when we think about government overstretch and misuse of the laws and stuff, one of the first things that comes up for a lot of people is the old Rockefeller drug laws.
Oh boy, oh yeah, that was a big deal in New York.
Absolutely.
That a lot of people, actually, a lot of people in music, I remember in the early 2000s, there were massive demonstrations where tens of thousands of people showed up to get those Rockefeller drug laws rescinded and adjusted, because too many tens of thousands of people had been put in prison for, I mean, cannabis. People got thrown in jail for cannabis for massive amounts of time. I mean, that was the thing that motivated me. It was still going on in too many places now. Bernard Noble was given a 13-year sentence for 2 joints worth of cannabis.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I remembered, because that's our first product, which is the same amount of cannabis that Bernard was criminalized for. So those 2 joints, now you can, high quality cannabis. That was the idea, messaging on the packaging. Well, not in Florida, but that's the idea. There's all kind of signage in the stores that kind of give you the idea. And then we, of course, take care of Bernard Noble, and then we donate a portion of what we earn to organizations helping fix people that have been victims and helping them. So the organization that we work with in Florida is the Green Book Academy, which is doing incredible work. And in other states, we have various organizations that are all more or less helping those kind of people that have become victimized by these kind of, charges that can screw people's lives up. And so we're trying to fix all of that now. That's the phase cannabis is in. It's enlightening people. It's giving people good medicine. It's helping them feel better. And it's also, we're trying to have our brand help fix some of the harms caused. And it's been really a rewarding experience, and looking to, come up with more products soon and spread the word. And I also like to point out, no one has died from the use of this plant. No one. There's no deaths related to cannabis. Yet they've got cannabis listed in the same category as heroin, which is really bad. So hopefully politicians will.
There's a guy, Cory Booker, up in
Jersey,
New Jersey. He's got a marijuana act that's been sitting around up there. I wish they had pushed that through right now. If you look at that hits at a lot of the stuff that needs to be done, I think.
Exactly. I know that. I think that's the MORE Act, if I'm not mistaken, which is a bill that would immediately expunge records, take cannabis off the schedule, allow it to be, and then people in the cannabis business can't use federal banks. You've got to move your money around in all these kind of ways that cost you a whole lot. And so it's a whole bunch of stuff. So hopefully, I've seen those bills. I think the MORE Act, if I'm not mistaken, as well as the Safe Banking Act to allow people to bank their money, have passed in the House of Representatives at least a couple of times. But you know how that goes. They got to pass through the Senate, or maybe Biden can put down an executive action of some sorts. I don't know. But we're going to keep banging on his door, and Kamala Harris and anybody else that'll listen, so we can let them know, like, we're not there yet.
Can you tell me a little bit about the packaging for the product and sort of the design elements and the graphics for the brand overall? Who you put that together with, and sort of how those elements reflect the nature of the product itself.
Yeah, well, we've got this incredible design team that works with Be Noble. They're called Abood and Abood. They're based out of London, actually, and they came up with our whole design. We use in Florida, all cannabis packaging is black lettering on white packaging. But basically, when you go in the dispensaries in Florida, you'll see other signage that explains what Be Noble is about, what we're doing, how we give back to help those that were victimized for nonviolent cannabis offenses. And so the dominant color in our branding is red, and that was inspired by the Red organization that Bono put together, that raises money to help people in Africa, malaria victims, AIDS. They do a lot of great things, and
did they make those albums back in the day, like compilation? Maybe?
That's a good question. I'm not sure if the Red, they did albums, but they definitely, when they do their campaigns, they get all these major products and brands to make what they do all red. Like the iPhone will be red, and there'll be a special red organization, and the monies will go specifically to their charitable interests. So we were inspired by that in terms of using that color strongly in our graphics. Real clean, real simple, but at the same time, real strong and real bold. And we play around with things like, on certain signage, be educated, be aware, be involved, be noble, is how we market and the way we message around what the brand is all about. And the response has been great. People have made an emotional connection and, feel good that they're doing something that's helping the situations out there, help fix some of the wrongs that have been done by these horrendous cannabis charges. Once again, a lot of states have come around, but there's still a bunch of states that are still putting people in prison, like Bernard Noble, for small amounts of cannabis, giving people years in prison, man. It's so harsh. so horrible. So
Hmm. Yeah, it's true. Have you have you been to Jacksonville yet, or St. Augustine? Uh,
years ago, not on this recent trip, we just did Orlando and Tampa. Of course, I've been to Miami many times.
hmm
I was in Jacksonville many years ago when I worked at Yo MTV Raps. I also directed a bunch of music videos back then, and I directed a music video for a Jacksonville group called Mama Do and She. I don't think they hung around that much, but they were in Jacksonville. I flew in to direct a music video for them. So that was my only time there. And I had a good
Oh
time.
wow.
Yeah, it was back in the early 90s. This group, Mama Do and She. It was like a remake of a Sly Stone song, uh, which I can't remember which Sly Stone song, but they kind of took a Sly Stone song and made it like a rock rap vibe. Pretty fun group, but I don't think they stayed around for too long.
It's it's cool you mentioned Yo MTV Raps because yeah, I grew up watching that. In the whole MTV news crew, I used to.
Oh,
I was a nerd back then. I used to call that like the 212 area code. Back in the early 90s, you could just call the switchboard and
oh
ask
wow.
somebody. They would just put you up to like. I would just call Kurt Loder and like ask them random questions, and yeah, I'd bug them until they'd send me autographed pictures and
Oh,
you
that's
know.
so smart. Yeah, Kurt Loder is a great guy, by the way. Kurt was super cool. I used to love running into him. The few times I'd be in the offices, and we had some mutual friends in Germany that in this German punk rock band called the Totenhosen.
Mhm.
The Kurt Loder and knew the guys. So whenever we see each other, we'd have a Totenhosen conversation. But Kurt was a
Oh
really
wow.
good guy. And
Mhm.
yeah, MTV News. Wow. Whoa.
Yeah, you've been. I mean, you've been part of crews that have like legitimately changed the world multiple times. I mean, it's almost 50 years in the game now, and you
Yeah.
know, I've been watching you on TV since I can't even, since Reagan
Well,
was.
Yo MTV.
You
Yeah,
know.
no, you're right. Yo MTV Raps launched in '88. I'm happy
hmm
to say, and I did that for about 6 or 7 years. Luckily, it turned out to be an important period where artists like Tupac,
hmm
Biggie, Snoop, NWA all debuted in that
Yeah.
time frame and were guests on my show. So America
hmm
first got to see these guys. I was just as curious as I guess a lot of other people were. So it was a super fun. I was so blessed to have been in that position at that time to just satisfy my personal curiosity and share it with anybody else that paid their cable bill and was tuned in. And you were one of them. So it was
Yeah, I'd say Yo MTV Rap, the show, like did as much to get hip hop into the mainstream as any particular individual artist did. I think
no,
your
yeah,
MTV Raps is what showed America that you can effectively monetize hip hop culture and you can weave it seamlessly into. If it wasn't for your MTV Raps, you wouldn't have like Snoop Dogg on Sesame Street or you know Snoop Dogg and Kevin Hart on the Olympics or the so much of like the podcasting environment and stuff like that. If the podcast business had been around back when like you guys up in New York were doing your thing, like in the 80s and stuff, with streaming, today's technology, there's no limit to what could have happened, the amount of
yeah,
cash that could have been generated, and those,
yeah. No, it's a really good point, and perfect segue to mention that I am finally hosting a podcast myself.
yeah.
We're about to go tape the third episode today. It's called the 50 Years of Hip Hop podcast series on from the iHeart Podcast Network. So anywhere you get your podcasts,
hmm
you could check this out. And we're getting digging. We're interviewing like the original guys from the Bronx that laid the bricks in the foundation, and they're telling these incredible stories that have really not really been widely shared, about
hmm
how this whole thing came together, what the Bronx was like in the 70s when the landlords were burning their own buildings down to get the insurance money, and the rubble was in the streets. It was unbelievable. Looked like the way it looks in Ukraine now from the war going on. And yeah, hip hop came out of that. So we got the real guys telling those stories now. So that's pretty cool. 50 years of hip hop. It's amazing. I can't believe it's going down like this year. So
are there people from that era that even you can't find? Like, is there anyone that you personally couldn't find if you wanted to find? You know, if you're trying to, like, you know, do an interview or, like, you know.
Yeah, it can be. It is. So there's a team that's working to help put this together. You're right. And since I've stepped in, I've helped. There's some people that I reach out to directly. There are some people that have, you know, the funny thing is, with the technology we have now, people are scattered across the country and sometimes around the world. And once we connect, like the way we do these interviews, even we do it all online. We have a, you know, they hop on this site and we get on and we do these interviews, and you wouldn't even know it from listening. Well, you kind of might get a sense of it if you know how production works, because I'm not there asking questions, but they're answering, and then I'm filling in and tying it all together. Some people that have listened said, I feels like it's a documentary because the voices come in and out. You would kind of think if it's not a round table, then we're using some tech. But what's really special is, like, for instance, the one that we're going to tape today is who came up with the actual word hip hop, or the term hip hop, how it got popularized among the rappers, and then how it became the name of this whole broad cultural thing. We're going to explain that today in detail. And that podcast will hit, I think, on every other Thursday. So I think this Thursday, the new episode is going to be live.
In the among, like, the sort of the founding fathers of hip hop, the founding mothers of hip hop, that first 20 plus years of cats that put the culture on the map, how many of those people were children of jazz artists?
Oh, wow. Really good question. Well, I'm kind of not one of the people that created it, but I kind of grew up in a jazz household. So Max Roach was my godfather, right? So
no, that's my favorite drummer ever.
Oh my gosh. So my dad and Max Roach grew up together in Brooklyn. Okay. He was a huge presence in my life, in the house. And I just drifted in. I was never trying, although I did a little rapping, I was not trying to do that. But every other guy had a few rhymes. When the DJ set up on the block or in the local park, you wanted to get on the mic. Maybe girls would check you out. So everybody had a handful of rhymes, as I did.
Is that how Max Roach got set up with the New York City Breakers? Like, there's a video of Max Roach. I don't know if it's Danceteria or something.
No. Boy, dude, listen, you are really good. That is a performance. That clip that you might have seen is me rapping, the New York City Breakers breaking, and Max drumming. And in fact,
got a red tie.
Yes, oh boy, you are really, this is great. So next year will have been Max's 100th birthday, and there's a series of events being planned, performances and tributes. And we recently got the footage of that performance. I didn't even know that they filmed it. This was in the early 80s. And I'm working to have that music, the performance, a visual and an audio remix, and then to represent it at this place where it happened back in the 80s, this place called The Kitchen, which was a place where performance art happened in Soho, downtown New York. And so I just had a meeting with them last week where we're going to put together this performance presentation of the footage, but it's being remixed by this incredible DJ that also cuts visuals, this guy named DJ Shortcut. And so we're working on that now. And
please let me know. I'll fly up for that.
oh boy, well, okay, we'll have to make sure we're email connected or something, because we're working on that. And yeah, that's incredible that Max was a huge thing in my life from very beginning, when my dad told him I was hanging out with my local DJ doing some kind of rap stuff. Max wanted to see a demonstration, which scared the heck out of me, because I'm like, wait, I'm just joking around. But he was very interested in something new developing, and that led to us doing this crazy performance, which was documented. And so it's a pretty fascinating thing to be able to look at that 50 years, as a part of the whole 50 years of hip hop. Also, Mac's 100th anniversary, all this stuff all ties in together in an amazing way. And wow, glad you know about this.
He was like having a super creative period, like right around that time. He had his quartet,
Yes, the double quartet.
He had the double quartet with his, I think his daughter on.
Yes, Maxine. Yes, on viola. Yes, yes.
He did that thing with like where he overdubbed on the "I Have a Dream" speech, which kind of reminded me of the. I've said for years, Max Roach is the greatest jazz artist that no one's written a book about yet.
Well, oh boy, dude, I got chills. Okay, so listen, there's also a documentary that was done. Sam Pollard, who's a great documentary filmmaker, editor, he's done a doc. I'm in it, as well as talking about, it'll be a look at Max's whole career. Obviously, I've not seen the film, but it was just screened at South by Southwest. So I think it's going to be on PBS in the fall, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh.
On the American Masters series. There's a gang of performances happening in different places around the world. Tribute to him. Wynton Marsalis is doing something at Lincoln Center and blah, blah, blah. So we're excited, just as the family. I'm close with all Max's kids and stuff, to make sure his legacy. And then also the incredible thing that happened, I'm sure you're aware, in the Questlove documentary Summer of Soul, here's this amazing performance of Max and his then wife, Abby Lincoln, which was a big part of that whole thing, which blew me away. So
Freedom Day?
Say what?
Freedom Day?
Freedom
they had an album, Freedom Day, I think.
No. Freedom Now.
Freedom Now.
Freedom Now, the Max Roach suite. So what they were performing, I think, in Summer of Soul, you're right, might have been from that, the Freedom Now suite. Oh man, this is so great to talk to somebody that's that plugged in. This is unusual and rare, and I love it. So yeah, all this stuff is being worked on now. There's a whole lot of stuff, the documentary, this performance. So hopefully more and more people will be aware of Max Roach. And then Questlove is doing, who made the film. It was Summer of Soul, of course, great drummer, really gets music. So super exciting across the board. So that's something else that's being worked on.
You got to come up to Jacksonville, up here to Northeast Florida sometime. Maybe do next time we're coming through the state, do an event with Curaleaf up here.
Yeah. So that's where you're based, up in Jacksonville.
Yeah. Right. I also write for like Orlando and Tampa and whatnot. And I'm based in Jacksonville.
Oh, cool. Well, let me give you my email now.
Please
you please reach out to me, keep in touch. Just remind me who you are, and I'll definitely keep you locked in and whatever on all this stuff coming up, because this is really cool. So my email is LOW, P as in Paul, ROW at earthlink.net.
LOW PROW.
No, P as in Paul. P as in Paul. ROW.
Yeah, LOW PROW.
Yeah, at earthlink.net. And keep in touch with me on this. This is great, and I'll keep you abreast of little Max Roach stuff popping up and coming down the pipe. Yeah, man, this is good. Wow, this is amazing. Usually I mention people, they don't even know who Max is. So I always go, legendary bebop jazz drummer Max Roach was my godfather. There's a big influence on everything I've done, by the way, that my
Oh,
dad played all that music, and a lot of his friends from that period were around as I was a kid. And as I've grown older and figured out the things I've done, I constantly am aware the influence that experience had on me and affected the decisions I would make and how I've moved through the cultural space. I realized more and more, and I'm also early phases of working on my bio. I'm interviewing collaborators to put a bio out and tell my whole story. And this will be a key part of like how I became who I became. Is I had all this influence from all these jazz dudes around that I didn't
oh yeah.
realize it affected me in the way I did. All my decision making, and is a lot of that that's a heavy influence basically. So it's pretty.
Well,
pretty
Max is beloved in the South because, in part, because there's a big jazz community and a lot of jazz education, like at colleges and universities, high schools and stuff. So a
right.
lot of the material he did, particularly the Charlie Parker stuff and
Uh,
onward, is part of the lexicon. So
wow.
like every, I mean, we know Max Roach in Florida, like we know Ric Flair.
Oh my God. Wow.
It's
This is
like,
so great to know. I love this.
yeah, especially among drummers. Like you tell a drummer Max Roach was your godfather, like he's buying your drinks the rest of the day.
Oh man, this is epic, man. This is so dope. Oh my goodness. This has made my day. This is so special.
Well,
Well,
thank you.
yeah, so that's in full effect. There's a lot of Max Roach stuff being cooked up right now, planned, and next year when Max would have been 100, there's going to be a bunch of things rolling out to enlighten people about the great work and the cool guy he was, super supportive of things I was trying to do with hip hop. Amazing. Wow.
Well, I volunteer. Anything I can do to help with any of those projects, you let me know, and I'll let you know when this. I'll send you guys the article when it comes out in the next
Oh yeah,
week or two,
please.
and we'll continue. Continue
Yeah,
going.
no, absolutely, man. That's why I gave my email and let's keep in touch on this. This is a delight to hear this, and so glad that you're so dialed in,
Uh,
Amazing.
it's an honor. You're a legend.
Uh, I'm working on it. I'm working on it for
Yeah,
sure.
your reach has been very far. Keep on doing just what you're doing.
Thank you so much, man. I'm working on it. We are working on getting better at it for sure.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, man. Well,
Mm.
great to talk with you. This has been a delight. Like I said, keep in touch, and
Yeah,
I will keep you in the loop as these things pop up. Amazing.
absolutely. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
Shelton,
too.
thank you so much for your time.
For sure.
Yes, thanks,
We'll be in
Shelton.
touch.
Thanks, Morgan. Thanks, Jordan. That was a good one.
Thanks all. Shelton, we'll follow up, and if you need any additional assets or anything, we can gladly provide those.
Sure, absolutely. Send me some just some visuals, like
Okay,
promos and stuff. Yeah, thank you.
will do.
Here we
Thank
go.
you,
Okay,
Fab.
bye guys. Take care.
Thanks, Shelton. Have a nice day.
You
Bye.
too.